Hello again, YouTube. This is Ryan. I was going to do another video on my DIY Cintiq, but I have some things I wanted to talk about first. This is relating to my standing desk. Then the next video I will build, I've already built it, but I'll create a video for the stand that I'm using for my desk. So here you can see the stand that I was using since completing the tablet. It's not so much a stand, it was actually just two monitor stands from the first monitor that I destroyed the first time I tried building my DIY Cintiq, my tablet monitor build. And then the other stand from the one that I successfully used to integrate the monitor into the tablet. For height, I placed these melamine covered shelves on my desk, but I've always hated it because it was fixed in both the position on the desk and the viewing angle. There was no adjustment there at all. So I'd been looking for a way to build some sort of adjustment. I recorded this section of the build about a month ago in April, but I haven't posted this for two reasons. First, my office was under construction, and that forced me to rebuild my desk in April. And then the new desk plan caused me to consider a little bit more permanent solution for the tablet stand, which was awesome. Second, I've been extremely busy. I'm nearing the end of my classes for my PhD, and this semester I was enrolled in two very difficult classes requiring a whole lot of time dedicated to research. I literally just finished that yesterday morning, and I got great results. So yeah, this all started, this standing desk started in 2011 when I first got on the standing desk bandwagon. This was my first build. This was a kind of a sketchy setup. I was always worried the table would fall off the cinder blocks down there. And I hated how the side table wasn't the same height and the space below was kind of wasted. There were no storage, no drawers or anything like that. So there was a time when I actually raised that side table up to be at the same height as the front desk, and that was also pretty scary because I had two tables up on all of these cinder blocks. It was a nightmare. Anyway, so I decided it would be best to build something to go on the table and hold a larger desktop on top. But I wasn't to that point yet, still in 2011, 2012. And after a year or so of that, with the scary the scary two desks on cinder blocks setup, I went back to a normal sitting height desk. But I was so unhappy after standing for a little while. So I had to come up with a plan. In early 2014, I built these boxes out of 3/4 inch maple plywood and stained them really, really dark. I didn't do the stain right because I'm not a pro at woodworking or furniture building or cabinetry or anything like that, but I don't care. It worked for what I needed. The box were planned to be filled with all the junk that I needed to stow under my desk. Because as you remember, that last one didn't have anything underneath. And I didn't have any drawers. So everything that I needed to put in these boxes, and so it would fill up the inside, and then the outside just kind of was dark. Here's the same table as before, the one that was up on top of the cinder blocks, but I put these new these boxes on, and also a desktop up above. So this desktop is actually a solid, heavy, huge door. It's like 80, 90 pounds. I can lift it. No, it's probably more than that. It's really difficult to lift with one person, and I'm a big guy. So anyway, it fit perfectly, and I've used it ever since. As you can see, I ran the cables through the doorknob in the back near the wall, and I had to deal with these rough parts where the hinges were placed in the door when it was hung, and they were removed. But anyway, it had roughs on, or rough parts of the wood here, and it would catch on my shirt or things like that and put holes in my clothes. So if I lean too close to the desk, I overcame that with just some gaff tape or whatever. But anyway, that was how it was. My desk was for quite a while, actually. Like I said, I built this back in 2014. Here's the complete desk setup in February of 2014. As you can probably guess by looking at it, I had some problems. The first one you can't tell by looking at it, but I didn't have a tall chair at that point, like a drafting chair. So if I needed to sit, the only place to work, because sometimes you have to sit while you're working. When I'm coding a website, it's really, really difficult to stand. I haven't trained myself to get to the point where standing and coding is an easy thing for me yet. So at that point, I was building a lot of websites for the university. And yeah, I forgot to mention, this is my desk setup here at the University of Idaho. Anyway, I had a lot of websites that I was building, and so I was coding a lot, and I ended up just sitting in the chair that I had and leaning over into that small little desk thing that you can see that has the phone and the printer on it. That was not ideal. So anyway, it didn't work very well. Second, there eventually in 2015, I asked for and they bought me a nice tall drafting chair. I'm actually sitting on it right now. It's pretty comfortable. Last year in 2015. But as you can tell by looking at this picture, I kept hitting my knees on this lower table. And also the original plan was to have these 4 boxes that I'd created, have them to have all my stuff in, but the way that I built it, I didn't allow for, there was not enough room, so they couldn't sit side by side, and then it was front to back, 2 in the back and 2 in the front, which was nice for this shelf, but with access to putting anything in those boxes in the back, it just was just pointless. It wasn't any useful. The only thing the boxes were doing was holding up the desktop, the big heavy drawer. So then I needed a new plan, and I was looking at some options and planning some things, and so this was the setup that I came up with in the middle part after I got my standing or the drafting chair that I'm using. I took out the single desk and put in these 2 small tables. So I turned this one sideways, and it sat against the wall, and it gave a little bit more leg room, and that was nice. And then I set the Mac desktop up off the floor, which was really good. But the bad thing was I still kept hitting my shin when I was sitting in the chair on this left-hand table. Also, the space behind the scanner still wasn't wide enough for the box there, so it ended up in front of that other one still. And so I couldn't use all of those boxes for storage. So that was a drawback. So I was still looking for something else. Also, this setup forced me to set up the shelves in the back because of where I would have to sit my legs. I didn't want to be kicking those shelves, right. That was the whole point of getting the other tables, so I wasn't knocking my shins with the table down there. So I set some wooden boxes up on top of the shelf there, the top shelf, to act as a drawer, and that was so awkward. The drawers were like the boxes, they were like really narrow, not narrow but shallow boxes. Anyway, they were just set in there, and so when I would pull one out and get something out of it, like a pen or notepad or whatever, when I'd go to put it back, the corners would knock and it would bump the other one out of place, and so then I'd have to realign them and whatever. And once I dumped once I dumped one of those drawers, that was enough to want a new setup. because I had, all sorts of stuff in these drawers and dumped it all over the floor. So back in January 2015, I had also bought my first Wacom tablet. And it was awesome, but I only used it for like one day, maybe two. And the reason I only used it for that short amount of time, I got the Wacom Pen and Touch Small, which basically has like an index card, a large index card size for the active area, which was like twice as big as the touchpad Surface that I was using on my MacBook Pro, the internal one that's about the size of a Post-it note. Anyway, so like I said, I sent this Wacom Pen and Touch Small back because it was so small. It was too small for my hands. And then I scored an awesome deal on an old, actually two Wacom Intuos 3 tablets on eBay. And the first was this 9x12, which was awesome because it was so much bigger than that the small Pen and Touch version. And then the next one I got was this massive 12x19. And I much preferred using this one. It was big enough. I could do big sweeping strokes, and it was huge. So I could, really use a whole lot of surface area to draw, and that was cool. But the problem was it didn't have a good way, as you can see, to use it on my desk with the keyboard. I had this rubber band that would basically function as a support, or not a support, but an anti-skid surface for the keyboard to hold on to so it wouldn't slide off. And that also kept it attached to the artboard that I had here. And that would keep everything so I could move it around all together at one time on my desk or onto my chair, which, that was okay, but it wasn't ideal. And so it wasn't long, it was like less than a week before I saw the large screen Cintiq models from Wacom, and I started coveting. No, I wasn't coveting. I just wish I had something like that. That quickly spiraled into the DIY realm, the do-it-yourself tablet monitor builds from bongofish.co.uk, and I've always had the DIY bug, so this was like a natural or unnatural progression. So these are a few that I saw that I especially liked. I liked the tablet, that it was so integrated into the drafting table of the build, and so that was it. And I started planning. I wanted to do something like that, but at the same time, I still needed to come up with the desk. So I came up with some plans that had the tablet already attached to the desk that I previously had, the one that I was banging my knees on. And then other plans, I had created new desks. This one I had planned to build with plywood and using plumbing pipe to hold up the supports and everything. And it just, I felt like I needed a whole new desk. And so November of last year, 2015, I scored a drafting table on Craigslist for free, which is awesome. Anytime you can find something free, it's just awesome. I actually ended up getting 3 of them, and I gave one to my boss and hauled the other 2 home in separate occasions because I have a minivan, and so I had to break them apart and haul them in my van. So then I actually helped another guy disassemble and load another one. So I'd taken apart 4 of these desks from this engineering company, and I had it down to a science. So she was like, "I'll let you take them for free, but since you already know how to do it, just do me a favor and help these other guys." So I didn't mind. It was karma and paying it forward or whatever. So the bummer was that it stayed out in my garage all winter because I didn't have time, with school to change out my desk at the office. Then in March, the stars aligned for me to switch out my desk. First, the maintenance crew announced that they were going to need to switch out the heat pump in my office. So that meant tear out the ceiling, move all the desks, get everything out of the way so, insulation wasn't getting into computers and stuff like that. And then when they were all done, we'd move everything back. So I was like, hey, if I have to move everything out of my office, I could take apart this desk and bring in my drafting table. And that would be ideal. And so I did that. And I'm sorry, again, for all these rendered images, because I didn't take pictures. I didn't, at the time didn't feel like, hey, this was going to be important. I'm learning more about, hey, I might be able to use this later, so I need to take photos. So anyway, I took home the door, and there was a window and the doorknob, and I cut those out. And the reason was I was going to insert a drawer. And I thought, hey, if I put a drawer in here, then I can put my tablet in it, and that'll at least give me some customized, ability to move the thing around, so I could use it in a different angle than, back when I was sitting on those melamine shelves. So anyway, I also built a shelf, I just cut a sheet of plywood to act as a shelf to go on the lower support, and then I could put my boxes down there. So that was the plan. And then I also, after I got it put in the desk here at the office, and I was looking at it and like, how do I build this drawer? The thought came to me, hey, I could just go get another door, one of these big heavy doors, and cut a chunk out of it and have it sized perfectly to fit in this hole. And so that's what I did. And so here's the door, or the drawer. So it acts kind of like a slider. I put some heavy drawer slides, not the flimsy ones or whatever. And these are low flush, or they're flush mount drawer slides, and so they're pretty cool. They're really strong and durable. I haven't had any trouble with them at all. And so I have this surface that I can pull out. So that's about it for this video on the drafting table. I'll have another one soon, and here's a sneak preview of the rest of the tablet stand. When it was all said and done, I have this tablet stand that will pull out from the desk, so I can, pull it out to my chair and sit there and draw in a nice, comfortable situation. And then it also tilts vertically, so I can change the angle. So if I'm doing more coding or something like that, then I'll have a nice, vertical surface. If I'm drawing, I can have more of a horizontal, a tilted, angled surface, which is great. And then also, if I'm drawing, I put in a Lazy Susan, and so it can rotate. So it rotates, it turns, it tilts, it slides. It's super awesome. I'm pretty happy with it so far. But again, that's in the next video, so stick around. And if you are new and just coming on to this video, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe. I'm not going to guarantee I'll have anything, at a regular schedule. I'm, like I said, working on a PhD, so regular is not even an option in my schedule. But I'm going to do my best to update a little more frequently than I have in the past, and I am working on this project, and I've already done the work for this next video. So stick around, and thank you for watching. See ya.